Hello everybody, this is Llodg, and today I am back with another First Thoughts video, and today I'm going to be talking about Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes for the Nintendo Switch, which is kind of like a different take on the story of Fire Emblem 3 Houses. So same characters in the world, but different stuff actually happens. I'll get into how it differs later in the video though. I'm going to be talking about the demo which was released for the game that covers up to chapter 4, and before I actually get into the video, I thought I'd talk about a little bit about my past with both Fire Emblem and these Koei Tecmo Warriors games, so you guys can know where I'm coming from when I compare this game to those others. So for the actual Fire Emblem series, my first game was Awakening on the 3DS, and I enjoyed it, but since I wasn't too much into RPGs at the time, I have never ended up finishing it. And it would be the same for the rest of the series. I could play every game until 3 Houses, where I would eventually finish that by going through the Blue Lions route and really enjoying it and wanting to go back to the other games in the future. Now for the Warriors games, I've actually played through a few of them, both Hyrule Warriors games, and I've actually played but not finished Persona 5 Strikers and the original Fire Emblem Warriors. So now that you know what I have played, let's get into the video. Okay, so you start the demo with choosing some difficulty options, like usual, and then you have an option that players of Awakening and onwards are probably very familiar with, the classic or casual options. In the original games, if a character of yours died, then they would be gone for good, and some people would be sad about this and move on, and others would reset the map and retry to make sure all of their favorite characters would reach to the end. But in Awakening, the developers added a casual option to have character deaths not be permanent and come back after the map. And these options are here as well, and apparently it was in the original Fire Emblem Warriors games, but I guess it was 4 years ago, so I just didn't remember until I actually had to look it up. But yeah, it's cool that Koei Tecmo is able to bring in these features from the original games into their games, and that's something that I will always applaud them for doing. Oh, also in this game, the classic permadeath doesn't actually start until chapter 4. But anyway, I chose casual mode because that's what I am. Oh, also you get to choose if you want things to pop up, and I should have chosen the quick and efficient one because I hated how often they popped up. But oh well, I didn't realize that this is where that option came up from until now. Oh, also you can play through the first few chapters and even carry over your progress to the full game when it releases on June 24th. But with that, let's get into the game and see a really cool cutscene with a cool anime CGI battle going on with dragons and stuff, which is honestly how more games should start out. Then we see Flame, who is from the original 3 Houses, healing some people until she just stops and wonders if this battle will end. I mean, I guess it'll end if you stop healing the soldiers. And then we see some other characters doing some magic and flying on dragons, and I'm sure this will make sense by the end of the actual game. But even though I played 3 Houses, I don't really know what's going on. Maybe I didn't pay enough attention in that game. Anyway, that cutscene was cool, and we get woken up and told to do work, and here is where we get to see our main insert character and choose their gender, because it seems like all the Koei Tecmo games need to make their own characters, but it's fine. And I chose the girl because I think she looks really cool. Though looking at them both now, I'd be fine with either, and their canon name is Shez. And I was gonna make fun of that, but I looked it up and it seems like it's a real name. And it might be. I mean, I don't see anyone with that actual name. I mean, if you look up images, it'll only show this Fire Emblem character, so if your name's Shez, let me know. But still, what a weird name to choose. I mean, we'll learn later on that they even live with their parents and they're just going around with mercenary groups. You can choose whatever name you want, and you can go with that. Anyway, I promptly changed it, and it seems like we'll be going up against Geralt's mercenaries, which if you played the OG game, you'll know is Byleth's father. And you can even get to choose what Byleth's gender is, which is really cool, and you get to name them, though I stuck with Byleth. Also, I'm with the guy Byleth, just because that's who I'm used to seeing, but I know some people really prefer female Byleth. Oh, and also Byleth is apparently called the Ashen Demon, which is a super cool title, but of course you had to stick with Shez. After talking to some people that don't have names because they won't be here long, so don't worry about them too much. And here where we can actually figure out how combat it works for the first time, and it's pretty much like the standard Warriors games where you have regular attack and strong attack that you can combine into different combos depending on what class you are, and most characters are pretty similar. For most of the maps you have a few bases and have to run to the enemy base and defeat the stronghold captains and make the bases yours, so you'll be doing combos and every once in a while some large attacks by building up a gauge or breaking the enemy's guard to do massive amounts of damage, and yeah, that's pretty much the basic summary of what you'll be doing, but there are a few different types of objectives that I'll talk about as they show up, but they are pretty much all standard warrior stuff. Also, as you can probably tell, the game actually runs pretty well despite how much stuff is going on the screen and is being attacked. I gotta say it's pretty nice to see it not constantly stuttering. After fighting hundreds of enemies and hearing that our allies are having trouble against this Ashen Demon, we make our way to the stronghold base and face him ourselves. We aren't able to save our allies in time, which I would have started out with this sadly, but I don't really care too much about them, so... And then we finally see the Ashen Demon. Even though we're able to take care of a ton of regular soldiers back there, we stand no chance against Byleth. He's just too good. But before he's literally able to murder us, we say that we need to get stronger like Goku would, and we hear a voice that says the cycle of the world will not be allowed to perish with us. And then we basically turn into a Super Saiyan. But as a cat. And then from this transformation we are much stronger and actually able to hold our own against Byleth. But before we're able to win, many of the enemy mercenaries start spilling in. And with that, the mercenaries were basically able to win despite the heavy losses because...
That's enough! We did what we came to. Everyone, fall back!
And Bob just walks away as we faint. And here we actually get to speak with Arvel, that voice from before that lets us go Super Saiyan. And as for this demo, he isn't really going to matter too much. He'll talk with us similar to how Sothis did in 3 Houses, but there isn't going to be much to do. But I'm sure in the main game he'll do much more. Anyway, he tells us that the Ashen Demon is super strong and beats us in a fight, and if we fight him again, the same result will happen if we don't try to get stronger, since Arvel doesn't want to step in again, which is just kind of lazy on his part. Anyway, we vow to get stronger and we'll surpass the Ashen Demon. Why do we want to do this? All our character really wants is to crush the mercenaries that beat our last company for some reason, even though she wasn't overly attached to them. But yeah, let's do this. Then we get into the next chapter, and each of these chapters starts out with a narrator. I'm pretty sure it's the same one from 3 Houses, or one that sounds super similar, and they'll talk about the events that have been going on, or have gone on in the past, just to catch you up to speed. And in this one, the narrator talks about the 3 nations of Foldland, which are the Adjusted Empire, which will have the Black Eagles, the Holy Empire of Fargus, the Blue Lions, and the Leicester Alliance, the Golden Deers. And I won't really get into their whole history because for one, I only really know a basic amount of it, but if you're eager to learn more, I suggest you play the 3 different routes in 3 Houses. These nations had war in the past, but are as of right now at peace, and even since soon the Garreg Monastery in the middle where they all take a year to learn in their different classes, which I discussed before. Anyway, an apparent 6 months later, we wake up in the field where Avril basically put us because he has been saving our life a ton, which I don't think he really has been. I'm pretty sure he's just trying to set himself up as this great guy. I'm on to you, Arvel. Anyway, while trying to find the Ashen Demon, we come across the future leaders of the 3 nations, Dimitri, Claude, and Edelgard. And you can kind of tell who is a part of what class because of the colors they're wearing, so thanks for that. Anyway, they think I'm a part of the band of thieves, and for some reason they believe us when I just say I'm not a thief. I mean, I guess I didn't try to steal anything from them. We tell them we are looking for the Ashen Demon's mercenary group, but in the meantime we can help them with the thieves, and here we finally get to play as characters other than our protagonist. And much like other Warriors games, the other characters play really similar to each other, so I won't be talking about how different these characters are from each other since you'll be able to change their classes down the line, and it's the same combo system, but sometimes you can learn magic instead of a bow. But something that is interesting and a real reason you should switch characters other than just being somewhere in an instant is that the certain enemies will use different weapons, and these weapons will have weaknesses to each other, and it uses the old weapons triangle that almost every other Fire Emblem game uses. I think 3 Houses kind of changed it, and it works like those games where you have a much easier time if you take the matchups correctly. I mean, you can use weapons that aren't meant for each other, but it'll just take a really long time to kill these guys. There is also a feature that was originally featured in the first Fire Emblem Warriors where you can tell other characters where to go, and they are actually able to hold their own pretty well, and sometimes are actually able to do tasks by themselves. Other times though, they'll cry for help, so you win some, you lose some. Oh, also when our gauge builds up, we can activate the Awakening gauge and become a Super Saiyan. But this doesn't really come up as much as you'd think. Maybe in the later chapters when the battles are much longer and we fight more enemies, it'll be able to be used more often. After being the Bandits boss, which is something that happened in the original 3 Houses game, except instead of Byleth being there, we help the 3 lords go back to camp with Alois, who honestly isn't big of a character yet. He's pretty much the leader of the Knights of Saros, and man, every time I explain something, I feel like I'm condensing it a lot, so go play 3 Houses if you want to learn more. I know very little. And we finally get to camp, but they want us to stay there so we can help them get to the monastery because I guess we're just super strong. And while we're in this makeshift camp, we can talk to all of the students of the 3 classes, and you can even ask the leaders about certain students, so if you want to know more about them, you can. And after talking with everyone, we reflect on the 3 leaders for some reason, and finally make our way to Garrick Mach. We get thanked by Rhea, who is pretty much the pope of this church, and learn that the church wants us to actually attend as a student. We accept to be able to get stronger, and even learn that these other 3 adults are the teachers of the 3 houses, and they actually let us choose which house we want to join. I chose the Blue Lions because that's what I chose in my 3 houses playthrough, and we get assigned the teacher Yuritsa, who was in 3 houses but wasn't a house teacher. After talking with our new peers for a long time and seeing how cute my character looks in the uniform, there's a lot of talking in this demo, by the way. They talk about how cool it is I'm a part of their class, and that they've heard how much of a good fighter I am.
Rumor has it you're quite the exceptional fighter.
Yeah, go Super Saiyan, no big deal. Then we set out to fight some bandits in the fortress. Okay, and in this battle there isn't going to be much of the actual story, it's just another battle, but this time you get adjutants, which is when 2 characters pair up and can do more damage. Like when the special gauge goes up, you can have 2 characters paired up, they do the attack together. And while they are paired up, they'll gain support with each other, which I go over a bit later, but honestly in this demo, most likely won't matter too much. Anyways, we easily defeat the thieves, and is this a dungeon? So yeah, I kinda lied about not much story stuff happening in the mission. So yeah, these thieves managed to capture one of the last year's Black Eagle students named Monica, and after we free her, we have to escort her out of the fortress. However, before we can escape, Kronya appears, and we have to fight her.
Hi there, I'm Kronya, but you can just call me the lady that's about to murder you. Or, don't.
Although she isn't much of an issue to take care of, we swiftly defeat her. Then she summons a creature that honestly really reminds me of the Dongo from The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. But yes, much like 3 houses, you have to fight these huge creatures that have multiple break bars, and I just think it's cool that we're able to implement them since they are fairly dangerous enemies in 3 houses. We are able to defeat it though and claim the mission as a success. After speaking with Monica, we get up to speed about what she's been doing and what happened with her, and she says that Tomas, an old dude, took her. But it seems like Arvel knew about Kronya, but of course his memory is gone, so he doesn't know why he knows her, he just gets a feeling that he has known her in the past. And yeah, I know they say that a lot more, but come on, do you guys really want this video to be hours long? I'm trying to condense it for you, for yours and my sake. Also, I think Monica joins the Black Eagles because I've heard people actually talk about why they really like her, so if you play that route, you may get an extra character. But she doesn't join our class, which is a shame. And after talking to the Blue Lions once again, I'm skipping over this because it's just characters talking about what we already know. But I have to say that I do like that they are giving all these characters the time to shine and none of them feels like they overshadow one another. We then hear that the knights have surrounded Tomas, but before they can capture or even attack him,
Rhea wants to speak with you. I suggest you accept.
This doddering persona of mine will benefit me no further.
What is this?
he also goes Super Saiyan, except instead of a cat, he just gets much older and uglier. Arvel even points out that this is similar, and I kinda wrote that joke about them being similar in my head before he even said that, so I'm glad the writers decided to go the same way I thought they should go. Anyway, he's mad we found him out, and then just teleports out of there. If you've played 3 houses before, you'll know that these are actually events that happened in the game, however they have turned out very differently. I won't spoil how these events turn out in the original game, because I would honestly hate to spoil it for you, but it's almost like an alternate timeline where Shaz replaced Byleth at the start with the bandits, and everything Butterfly reflected from there. And there will be a few more changes, and I'll point out that there were changes, but once again, I will not say how different it actually was. And then we get to another chapter, and we speak with Arvel about Tomas, and then Dimitri talks with us to make sure we are okay, and that's why he's my favorite of the 3. Then we regroup with our class and talk about what's going to happen next. Dimitri's uncle has taken over the capital to declare war on Felix's family, who is one of the kingdom's leading houses. Basically, they believe they want to do this to stop Dimitri from officially becoming king. His uncle believes that Felix's family is merely trying to make him a puppet to do their bidding. After more talking to the Knights of Saros, deciding to help out Dimitri in order to take back the capital, since the church wants to maintain peace. And it seems like Rhea wants Dimitri to do other thing for the church, but then the scene fades to black before we can actually hear it. So after more talking with classmates, some decide to join us and others want to stay. And I haven't really brought it up yet, but at certain points these conversations you actually get to make some choices, but most of them don't really have much of an impact on the actual story, it's just how you'll say them. And then we get to spend the night before the battle talking with classmates, which I always think is neat, because everyone can have a different perspective on the battles if the story is well written enough. And here we meet a few new characters. Rodrigue, Felix's father, and Gilbert, Annette's father. Once again, if you want to know more about the stories, because they do have really interesting stories, I recommend you play Three Houses. Then we get a cutscene of the betraying uncle reading a letter from Dimitri, basically telling him he hopes he can resolve this peacefully, but of course the uncle is so far deep that he can only read it as a threat. Then we see Cornelia, who is basically manipulating Rufus into doing this. She basically wants Rufus to murder his nephew now, since he's had multiple chances to do it and failed. Basically, she's like the Emperor from Star Wars, not taking many actions, but reaping all the benefits. You shouldn't have missed your chance 4 years ago, and 2 years ago during the rebellion. That's twice you failed to end him. Oh yeah, Rufus is also the one that killed Dimitri's father, and can't stop seeing Dimitri as the animal that is about to go feral at any time, so you know. Then we see another cutscene of Cornelia with this really unflattering portrait of her basically being the one to pull the strings of this operation. And before we head into the battle, Dimitri reflects on what he'll have to do.
In other words, I cannot restore my grandfather's peace without first breaking it.
And with this battle, we actually get 8 characters on the field, however 4 of them you won't actually be able to control, but you can still move them via the map. However, I just made them adjunant, so we get more damage on the enemies and it's less people on the map for me to worry about since I don't actually have direct control over them. Once again, I won't be talking about much what actually happens in the battle. A lot of it is just taking strongholds and having some people go in one place and others in another. Oh, also I forgot to mention that in certain maps there will be chests with a key that a specific mini-boss like a soldier will have, so be on the lookout for those. After fighting our way through seemingly hundreds of soldiers and taking strongholds, we were able to open the drawbridges so we can finally fight the 2 bosses of this map. With Rufus in the throne room, it makes sense to take Cornelia out first, and we do it quite easily since my character is a bit higher level than other characters and went super catty in. To be fair, who would even be able to survive this?
But if you think I need it to beat you, think again. We'll do it together. I got you now.
All that's left is to defeat Rufus in the throne room, and of course I had to play as Dimitri because Fire Emblem was one of those games where I have to play the correct character defeating the boss. And with that, we stop the rebellion. Then we get another cool CGI cutscene of Dimitri having to execute his uncle for what he did.
Final words.
Do it. Yeah, we see a whole execution, which I honestly wasn't expecting, but it's pretty cool. They will learn that Rufus was responsible for the murder of Dimitri's father, and they are worried that some of the other lords might want to turn against them as well, so the Blue Lions will have to stop going to Garrig's Mock since many of the lords will not be able to attend. And that's the end of the actual school arc, which is much shorter than it was in Three Houses, and I'm partly disappointed that was shorter, and we didn't actually get to do like class stuff, like being able to turn some of the classmates into our house and just doing stuff, since in the Three Houses game we are the teacher, in this game the student, a little bit of a very different dynamic, but I understand that this is just simply not that kind of game. However, this is a different end of the school arc than the original game, which leads to different motivations and even different character designs. So yeah, like I said before, it is really like a timeline shift since we are here instead of Byleth. And since Dimitri is putting together a private army, he chooses us to help lead it since we are so good at fighting. Then we get another narrator cutscene that talks about all that has happened, even in the Adrestrian Empire and Lestier Alliance have their own troubles, and I'm pretty sure you can tell from this demo, but if you choose those other 2 houses you'll get a whole different third mission, but I only played the Blue Lions, so this is like... Now 2 years after Garrig's Mock closed, the 3 house leaders are now the leaders of their respective nations. And Edelgard just declares war on the Central Church, so you know. Then we get a cutscene talking about what's been happening, why the world is in such a kind of turmoil, and there's literally a ton of talking about politics. But then we finally get control again and have the base camp where you can do lots of stuff like chores to help bring up support, trading to level up classes, and even be able to change into cooler classes and buying stuff from someone who should have been Anna, but oh well. You can also go on missions. Some of these missions are just side missions though, so you don't have to do them, but they bring in more XP for characters and items so you can get cooler stuff. And I'll talk about supports here. So in the actual Fire Emblem games, when you level up supports by either battling together or by doing stuff they like, you'll get to talk with them and have these special conversations with them and understand them even deeper. And even other characters can have these conversations with each other. But in this game, I think it works similarly, but some people's levels don't have conversations, which is kind of sad, so I can't show off any of them here. Before you can even get to the main story missions, shown as giant golden chess pieces, you have to do some of the silver side missions, and these are usually just beating bandits or helping people escape from these enemy soldiers. Yeah, some stuff to keep you busy if you are living this game. If you do these, you can even capture different pieces on the map and help them out, and they'll even give you some resources. After doing the first of these side missions, you get a short cutscene of Edelgard and her second-in-command Hubert talking about their epic plans of conquest, and that's all the actual story in this demo. Even when you do all the side missions, you aren't allowed to continue. That's for the main game. And man, this demo was much longer than I thought. I looked up some live streams to know how long it would be, and those were about 2 hours, and my playthrough was a little under 4 hours, so it's a pretty beefy demo. But yeah, I have to say I really enjoyed it. I said on Twitter that's probably my favorite of the Warriors games I've played so far, most likely sharing it with Persona 5 Strikers, but that game is a pretty different type of Warriors games. But yeah, I really loved playing it. Characters felt good to control. I mean, I did have some trouble with Annette and Mercedes doing good damage, but it's probably because they're low level and haven't gotten new classes yet. Once again, I think this game ran really well on the Switch, which is always good for these types of games, and I'm not sure if I'm just blind, but the models looked a bit better than they did in Three Houses. In that game, you could see some pixelization, but in this one, it's just a little bit harder to tell. Maybe it's just my eyesight getting worse. But overall, I really like the visuals, and it looks a lot like the original Three Houses, which Koei Tecmo is really good at doing with all their Warrior games. Also, the music is that classic Warriors electric guitar added to classic arrangements, which I've always enjoyed. Also, the original sound effects seem to be taken straight from the original game, which I really enjoyed.
I cannot grow complacent.
And yeah, like I said, you can play the demo before the game comes out, and even carry over your progress into the full game. And this demo can technically get you through 12 hours of content if you play through all the 3 different routes. So yeah, I recommend that you play this through because I really enjoyed it, and also I can't wait for the full release when Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes releases on June 24th. I hope you enjoyed the video, have a good day, and goodbye.